You'll take all 14 inches, the ruthless CEO warned the secretary virgin daughter. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get into today's story. Imagine a powerful man, a ruthless CEO who seems to have everything. But what happens when a simple mistake turns his life upside down? Let's find out. Emma was nervous. She had promised her best friend Jenny that she would go through with it, but nothing could prepare her for the reality of sitting in a fancy restaurant. The place was a far cry from the diner she worked at, and everything about it screamed high society. The hum of quiet conversations, the clink of silverware, everything seemed so foreign to her. She took a deep breath as she walked into the restaurant. Her dress, a second-hand find, was already making her feel out of place, but she had to keep going. Jenny had insisted that this blind date could change everything. Emma's shoes were scuffed, and she could feel her palms getting clammy. She muttered to herself as she checked the table number, table 7, table 7, her heart raced in her chest as she approached the back of the restaurant. There, sitting alone, was a man who looked out of place in this high-end establishment. He had dark, neatly styled hair, his suit fit perfectly, and he seemed engrossed in his phone. This has to be him, she thought. With a deep breath, Emma walked up to the table, forcing a bright smile on her face. "Hi, you must be Kevin." "I'm Emma, nice to meet you," she said, sliding into the seat across from him. He blinked in surprise, clearly startled by her sudden approach. Hi, Emma," he stammered. For a moment, there was an awkward silence. Emma misread his hesitation as shyness. "I know, blind dates are weird, right? Jenny told me you might be a little shy, so don't worry. I can talk enough for both of us," she said, trying to ease the tension. Liam Parker, the man across from her, was anything but shy. He had just been startled by Emma's sudden approach. His business associate had just cancelled their meeting, and he was left with a bit of time. But something about Emma caught his attention. She wasn't like the polished women he was used to, those who only cared about his wealth or status. Emma was genuine, straightforward. Despite himself, Liam felt a hint of amusement. "Right, blind dates are something else," he said with a faint smile. As the conversation continued, Emma found herself relaxing, her nerves slowly fading. She shared stories about her life, how she worked long hours as a waitress, just to make ends meet. She talked about her dream of opening her own art studio one day. As she spoke, she noticed Liam listening intently, nodding along, and occasionally asking questions. There was something about him that made her feel comfortable. She could tell that he was different, but she still had no idea who he really was. "So, what do you do?" Emma asked, trying to keep the conversation going. She had asked a dozen men the same question on blind dates before, but none had ever made her feel this at ease. Liam paused, not sure how to answer. "I work in tech," he replied simply, hoping she wouldn't press for more details. Emma smiled at him, her eyes lighting up. "Oh, that's cool. Like, coding and apps and stuff?" "I'm terrible with computers, I can barely work a phone," she laughed, trying to lighten the mood. Liam smiled, amused by her honesty. "Something like that," he said, leaning back in his chair. The conversation continued, the two of them laughing, sharing stories, and getting to know each other better. But neither of them knew that this meeting was about to take a turn that neither would ever forget. As Emma glanced at her phone, she saw a message from Jenny. "Hey Emma, where are you?" "I'm at table 7, looking forward to meeting you." Her stomach dropped as she reread the text, realizing the mistake. She looked up at Liam, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment. "You're not Kevin, are you?" she asked softly, barely above a whisper. His smile faltered for a moment, guilt flickering in his eyes. "No, I'm not," Liam replied, his voice tinged with regret. Emma's face turned bright red. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," she stammered, standing up abruptly. "I sat at the wrong table. This is so embarrassing." Liam stood too, as if to stop her. "Emma, it's okay." "Really, but Emma was already grabbing her coat and bolting for the door. Her heart pounded in her chest, and she couldn't get out of the restaurant fast enough. Liam stood there, watching her leave, a strange mix of regret and curiosity swirling in his chest. He had intended to correct her right away, but now he found himself wondering if he'd ever see her again, and why the thought of never seeing her again bothered him so much. Emma, on the other hand, was rushing out of the restaurant, her heart racing. She didn't even know why she had been so embarrassed. After all, it was just a mistake. But there was something about Liam that had made her feel different. For the first time in a long time, she felt seen, not just as a waitress, but as someone who had something to say. She couldn't shake the feeling that this meeting wasn't just a fluke. But as she rushed down the street, she promised herself that she'd never think about him again. After all, what were the chances they'd ever cross paths again? After Emma ran out of the restaurant, her heart was still pounding in her ears. She kept replaying the moment over and over, the embarrassment burning through her like fire. She told herself it was just another awkward night, another blind date gone wrong, except this time she had not even met the right man. She walked quickly down the sidewalk, trying to shake off the moment, but that strange feeling lingered in her chest, the feeling that the man she had just spoken to was not someone she would forget easily. Meanwhile, Liam stood by the table for a long moment, staring at the door she had rushed through. He was not used to feeling conflicted. He was the kind of man who built companies, closed multi-million-dollar deals, and made decisions without hesitation. But something about Emma's genuine smile, the way she laughed nervously, the way she carried herself despite clearly feeling out of place, left a mark on him. He sat back down, finishing his espresso in silence, wondering why a stranger had suddenly disrupted the order of his world. The next morning, Emma walked into the diner where she worked. The bell above the door chimed, the familiar scent of frying bacon and fresh coffee filling the air. Her coworker Mark glanced at her worried expression. "Rough night?" he asked, sliding her an apron. Emma groaned softly. "You have no idea. I sat at the wrong table last night." "The wrong table? I thought he was my blind date. Turns out my real date was waiting across the room." Mark raised an eyebrow. "Was the wrong guy at least cute?" Emma hesitated before answering. "Honestly, yes. Too cute. And too put together. He looked like he belonged in that restaurant." "I definitely did not." Mark chuckled. "Emma, you worry too much. Maybe he did not mind." Emma tied her apron and shook her head. "Trust me, he minded." But the truth was, she did not know if he did. And that bothered her more than she wanted to admit. Hours later, during the slow afternoon shift, Emma leaned against the counter wiping down menus. Outside, leaves rustled across the pavement as a gentle breeze passed by. The bell on the diner door chimed again. Emma glanced up automatically, her greeting ready on her lips. But when she saw who walked in, the word stuck in her throat. It was him. Liam Parker. He was dressed more casually today, wearing a simple dark jacket, but there was no mistaking him. He scanned the restaurant until his eyes landed on Emma, and for a brief second, she froze. Then he walked toward her with slow, steady steps. "Emma," he said softly when he reached the counter. She stared at him, wide-eyed. "What are you doing here?" Liam took a breath. "I wanted to apologize. I should have said something earlier. You did not do anything wrong." Emma looked down, nervously playing with the corner of a napkin. "I should have checked the table number. I just rushed in." Liam offered a small smile. Maybe it was not the worst mistake. She blinked, startled by his words. "What do you mean?" He leaned slightly closer, lowering his voice. "Because I would not have met you otherwise." Her heart skipped a beat. For a moment, she forgot she was standing in the middle of the diner where she earned tips and wiped tables for hours every day. She forgot about her second-hand dress, her scuffed shoes, and her constant fear of not being enough. For the first time since last night, Emma felt herself breathe a little easier. Before she could reply, Mark shouted from the kitchen, "Emma, your tables are waiting." She jumped slightly and looked at Liam apologetically. "I have to get back to work." Liam nodded. "I understand. But, would it be all right if we talked later? Maybe over coffee?" No blind date confusion this time. Emma hesitated. She knew this was unexpected. She knew nothing about him except that he had been kind enough not to make her feel foolish. And something inside her, quiet but strong, told her she should say yes. I think I would like that," she said softly. Liam's smile deepened. "Good. I will come by later." He left the diner with calm, confident steps, leaving Emma standing behind the counter, trying to steady her racing heartbeat. She did not know who he really was, and Liam knew he could not hide his true identity forever. But for now, in this small moment, something new had begun, something neither of them had planned, yet neither of them wanted to walk away from. The next few days felt like a blur to Emma. She went through the motions of work, her thoughts constantly drifting back to the unexpected meeting with Liam. Every time she replayed their conversation in her head, she felt a mix of confusion and curiosity. She had agreed to meet him for coffee, but there was a part of her that was still unsure about everything. What was this really? Was he just being polite, or was there something more? She could not deny the fact that she was drawn to him. The way he looked at her, the way he listened, he made her feel like she was more than just a waitress. He made her feel seen. She tried not to think too much about it, but every time she glanced at the clock, waiting for her break, she found herself wondering what he was doing, where he was. She had to remind herself that she couldn't afford to get too distracted. Her dreams of opening an art studio, of making something of herself, had to come first. But the thought of him lingered, like a shadow at the edge of her mind. That evening, when she finished her shift, she walked out into the cool night air, the city's lights casting long shadows across the sidewalk. The wind was brisk, and she pulled her jacket tighter around her shoulders as she made her way toward the cafe where they had agreed to meet. When she arrived, she saw Liam sitting by the window, already waiting. He was dressed casually in a grey sweater and dark jeans, looking far less intimidating than when she had first seen him in the fancy restaurant. There was something about his casual demeanor that made him seem more approachable. She took a deep breath and walked over to his table. "Hi," she said, her voice slightly uncertain. Liam looked up from his phone, a warm smile spreading across his face when he saw her. "Hey, Emma. I'm glad you could make it." He gestured for her to sit. "Would you like anything to drink?" "Just a coffee, thanks," she replied, sliding into the chair across from him. The waitress came by to take their orders, and once she left, the two of them fell into a comfortable silence. It wasn't the same awkwardness as their first meeting. Emma felt more at ease now, her initial nervousness beginning to fade. Liam didn't seem to be in a rush. He leaned back in his chair, studying her with a thoughtful expression. "So, how's work going?" Emma laughed softly. "Same old. It's tough, but I can't complain. It pays the bills." "I get that," Liam said, nodding. "I think everyone starts somewhere." Emma looked at him, surprised by his words. "You really think that?" He smiled, the corners of his eyes crinkling. "I do. No matter how much success you have, you don't forget where you came from." Emma wasn't sure what to say to that, but something about the way he spoke made her feel like he truly understood. He wasn't just another person who lived in a world of privilege. There was depth to him, something that made her want to know more. "I've been thinking about something," Liam said, breaking the silence again. "I know this might sound a little forward, but I'd really like to help you with your art." Emma blinked, unsure if she had heard him correctly. "Help me with my art?" He nodded. "Yeah. I know you've talked about opening your own studio, and I want to offer you some support. I've got connections in the art world, and I think you've got the talent. You just need the right platform." Emma's heart skipped a beat. This was unexpected, to say the least. "Why would you want to help me?" Liam leaned in slightly, his gaze steady. "Because I believe in what you're doing. And because I think you deserve a chance to make your dreams come true." She didn't know how to respond to that. It felt like too much, too soon. But at the same time, she couldn't deny the sincerity in his voice. For the first time in a long while, Emma felt like someone believed in her. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything right now," Liam said, his smile reassuring. "Take your time. Think about it. But I want you to know that the offer is there." As they sat there, talking more about their lives and their dreams, Emma started to realize that Liam wasn't just offering her a business opportunity. He was offering her a chance to believe in herself again, to step out of the small world she had been stuck in for so long. She had never imagined something like this would come from a simple mistake, a blind date gone wrong. When the evening ended, Liam walked her to the door, his expression warm and kind. "I'm glad we met, Emma," he said. "I'll give you some space to think about what I said." Emma smiled, feeling something stir inside her. "Thank you, Liam. I really appreciate it." As she walked back home, her thoughts were a whirlwind. She had come to the cafe expecting nothing more than a simple conversation, but now everything felt different. Liam's offer had changed something in her, and she wasn't sure where it would lead. But for the first time in a long time, she felt hopeful about the future. She had a chance now. A real chance. And she couldn't let it slip away. Over the next few days, Emma found herself thinking more and more about Liam's offer. She had never expected something like this to come out of a simple coffee date, but as much as she tried to push it to the back of her mind, the thought of it kept resurfacing. Could she really accept his help? She had spent so much of her life struggling to make ends meet, and now, someone like Liam, a man who clearly had everything, was offering her the chance of a lifetime. She was both excited and terrified. What would it mean for her to take that step? Would she be able to live up to the potential he saw in her? Or was this just another instance where she would fail? As much as Emma tried to brush off her doubts, they lingered. She couldn't stop thinking about how much her life could change. A studio. An art space of her own. For the first time, she could actually see the possibility of it becoming real. But was she ready to take that leap? What would it mean for her identity if she accepted help from someone like Liam? It wasn't just about the art, it was about everything else that came with it, the lifestyle, the expectations, the new world she would step into. She wasn't sure she belonged in that world, no matter how genuine Liam seemed. A week passed, and she still hadn't given him an answer. Every time she thought she had made up her mind, the weight of uncertainty would come crashing back down. But one evening, after a long shift at the diner, she sat on the edge of her bed, staring at her sketchbook. The pages were filled with drawings, some half-finished, others only sketched out with rough lines. But as she looked at them, something clicked. She had always dreamed of having her own studio, of making a name for herself as an artist, and now she had a chance. A real chance. With newfound resolve, she grabbed her phone and dialed Liam's number. It rang for a few moments before he picked up. "Hello, Emma," he answered, his voice calm and warm. "Hi, Liam," she said, taking a deep breath. "I've thought a lot about your offer, and I think I'm ready to take the next step." There was a pause on the other end. "Really?" Liam asked, his tone hopeful but cautious. "Yeah," Emma replied, her heart racing. "I want to do this. I want to work with you, and I want to make my dream come true." Liam's voice softened. "I'm really glad to hear that. You won't regret it, Emma. I promise. This is just the beginning." As Emma hung up the phone, a feeling of both relief and excitement washed over her. She had made the decision. She didn't know what the future would hold, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was finally moving in the right direction. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Liam introduced her to several people in the art world, all of whom were eager to help her get started. She spent her days working on her art, refining her skills, and learning about the business side of things. It was overwhelming at first, but with each new step, Emma felt more confident. She was building something for herself, and the foundation that Liam had offered her was giving her the stability and resources she needed to succeed. But it wasn't just about the art. Over time, she began to feel something more. There was a warmth in the way Liam treated her. He wasn't just a business partner. He genuinely cared about her success, and he was always there to offer advice, encouragement, and even the occasional shoulder to lean on. They spent more time together, both professionally and personally, and Emma couldn't help but notice how natural it felt. She had never expected to form a connection like this with someone who had so much power and wealth, but there was something different about Liam. He wasn't just a CEO, he was a man who understood what it meant to take risks, to put your faith in someone else, and to see the value in helping others achieve their dreams. One evening, after a meeting with some investors, they found themselves walking through the city streets, the cool night air brushing against their faces. As they walked side by side, Emma turned to Liam. "You've changed my life, you know," she said, her voice soft but sincere. Liam glanced at her, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "I didn't change your life, Emma. You did that. I just gave you the chance." Emma looked down at the ground, her thoughts swirling. "But still. I wouldn't be here if you hadn't believed in me. I've always had these dreams, but I never thought they could actually happen." Liam stopped walking and turned to face her. "I saw something in you from the moment we met, Emma. You have something special. And I'm just glad I could help you see that." For a moment, they stood in silence, the city noise fading into the background. Then, Liam spoke again, his voice quieter this time. And maybe it's not just your dreams I'm helping with." Emma looked up at him, her heart suddenly skipping a beat. His expression was different now, softer, more personal. She could feel the shift in the air between them, the unspoken words hanging in the silence. For the first time, Emma realized that there was something more here, something that wasn't just about business, or art, or even the chance he had given her. It was about them. And for the first time in her life, Emma felt like she was ready to face whatever came next. Weeks passed, and Emma's life continued to shift in ways she never thought possible. The art studio that had once seemed like an impossible dream was becoming a reality, and it was all thanks to Liam. The connections he had introduced her to, the guidance he had offered, and his unwavering belief in her were transforming her future. Emma was spending more time in her studio, sketching and painting in ways she hadn't allowed herself to before. The confidence she had gained was palpable, not just in her work but in the way she carried herself. She was no longer just the waitress at a diner, she was an artist, building something she could be proud of. But as her career in the art world blossomed, something else was beginning to grow between her and Liam. The time they spent together, both in and out of business meetings, had created a bond that Emma couldn't deny. There was a warmth in the way he looked at her, a gentleness that contrasted with his usual business-like demeanor. At first, Emma had dismissed it as professional respect, but soon, it became clear that there was something more, something deeper. The realization startled her. She had been so focused on building her career that she hadn't noticed her own growing feelings for Liam. He was more than just a mentor, he was becoming someone who made her heart race, someone whose presence felt like home. One evening, as they sat in the gallery space that was now beginning to take shape, Emma found herself lost in thought. The room was nearly empty, save for a few pieces of her work, but there was a sense of possibility in the air. The walls that had once been bare were now filled with color and creativity. She was finally stepping into her own, and it felt incredible. But as she glanced across the room, her eyes met Liam's, and the weight of the moment hit her. He was standing in front of her, looking at her with that familiar expression, a mix of admiration and something else she couldn't quite place. "Emma," he said, his voice low, almost as if he were hesitant to speak. She blinked, a little caught off guard by the serious tone in his voice. "What is it, Liam?" she asked, her heart picking up pace. Liam took a step closer to her, his gaze never leaving hers. "I've been thinking a lot about us lately," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "About how much you've changed my life too, not just in business, but in ways I didn't expect. You've made me see things differently, Emma. You've made me realize that there's more to life than work, more than just the next deal or the next project. You've shown me that there's value in connection, in something real." Emma's breath caught in her throat. She wasn't sure if she was ready for this conversation, but she couldn't look away from him. "Liam, I didn't know how to, I know," he interrupted gently, stepping closer still. "I've been careful not to overstep. I didn't want to complicate things for you. I know you're focused on your art, and that's all I've wanted to help you with. But lately, I've started to wonder if maybe, just maybe, I've been holding myself back from something I really want." Emma's heart was racing now, her mind spinning. She knew exactly where this was headed, and yet, she didn't know what to do with the emotions that were suddenly bubbling up inside her. She had spent so much time trying to stay focused on her dreams that she had ignored the possibility of something more with Liam. Could she really let herself go there? Was it too complicated? "I don't want to complicate things either, Liam," she said softly, her voice trembling slightly. "I've been so focused on my art, on building my future, that I haven't really thought about anything else. But I can't deny that there's something between us. Something that's always been there, even when I didn't want to admit it." Liam smiled, a small but genuine smile that made Emma's heart skip a beat. "I'm glad you're being honest with me. Because I feel the same way. I've been trying to pretend that I didn't care, that I was just doing this to help you, to help your career, but the truth is, Emma, I care about you. A lot more than I ever expected." The words hung in the air between them, and for a moment, neither of them moved. The gallery was quiet, the only sound the soft hum of the city outside, but in that stillness, something shifted. Emma felt her wall start to crumble, the one she had built to protect herself from getting hurt. She had been afraid to open up to anyone, especially someone like Liam, who was so far out of her league. But as she looked at him now, she realized that maybe, just maybe, she had been wrong to keep herself closed off for so long. "I'm not sure what this means, Liam," Emma whispered, her eyes never leaving his. "But I know that I don't want to lose what we have." "You won't lose it," Liam said, his voice steady and full of conviction. "I'm not going anywhere, Emma. I'm here for you. In every way." Emma stepped closer to him, the space between them now almost non-existent. She could feel the warmth of his body, the intensity of his gaze, and something in her heart finally clicked. She had spent so much time questioning everything, but in this moment, all of her doubts faded away. What if the next step in her life wasn't just about her art, but about something more? Something deeper. With Liam. And for the first time in a long time, Emma felt like she had found a place where she truly belonged. As the days passed, Emma felt herself falling deeper into a new kind of life, one she had never expected. Liam's presence in her world was no longer just about business or opportunities, it was something personal, something real. They spent more time together, not just talking about art or business, but about their lives, their pasts, and their hopes for the future. Emma began to understand the man she had once only seen as a successful CEO. She learned about his childhood, how he had grown up in a small town, always working hard to prove himself. Despite his wealth and success, Liam had a quiet, introspective side that he rarely showed to the outside world. And yet, for all the time they spent together, Emma still kept part of herself locked away. She had been through so much in her life, from her struggles with money to the lonely nights she spent dreaming of a future she never thought she could have. Letting someone in, truly letting someone in, was hard for her. She wasn't sure she was ready to completely open up, to let herself be vulnerable with Liam. But the more time they spent together, the more she realized that maybe, just maybe, he wasn't someone she needed to protect herself from. One evening, after a particularly exhausting day at the gallery, Emma found herself sitting with Liam in his penthouse, the city lights shining through the large windows. They were drinking wine, talking about everything and nothing at the same time. She had been working late on some new pieces for an upcoming exhibit, and the weight of the deadlines was starting to take its toll. Liam, noticing the fatigue in her eyes, set his glass down and leaned forward. "You need to rest, Emma," he said gently, his voice soft. "You've been pushing yourself too hard." Emma chuckled tiredly. "I don't know how to stop. Every time I take a break, I feel like I'm falling behind." Liam smiled, his gaze warm. "You're not falling behind. You're doing amazing. Just because you're not working every minute doesn't mean you're not moving forward." She sighed, leaning back into the cushions of the couch. "I guess I'm just afraid that if I stop, everything will come crashing down." Liam's expression softened. "You're stronger than you think, Emma. And you don't have to do it all alone. I'm here, okay?" For a moment, Emma didn't know how to respond. The words felt heavy in her chest, but somehow comforting, too. She had spent so much of her life thinking that she had to carry everything on her own. But Liam's kindness, his constant support, made her question everything she had believed about herself. Maybe it wasn't a weakness to rely on someone. Maybe, just maybe, it was a strength. Liam reached over and took her hand gently, his thumb brushing across her knuckles. Emma looked up at him, meeting his eyes for the first time in what felt like forever. In that moment, she realized how much he meant to her, not just as a mentor or a friend, but as someone who truly cared for her. And for the first time, Emma felt like she could let her guard down, even if just for a moment. "I've been thinking about something," Liam said, breaking the silence. "What's that?" Emma asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He paused for a moment, as if weighing his words. "I've never really been good at expressing my feelings, Emma. I've always been so focused on business and success that I've never really let myself experience the kind of connection that matters. But with you, it's different. I feel something real with you, and I think you feel it too." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She had been waiting for him to say something like this, but hearing the words made it all feel so much more real. "Liam," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "I don't know where this is going, but I feel it too. I don't know how to explain it, but when I'm with you, everything just feels right." Liam smiled, his eyes softening. "We don't have to figure everything out right now, Emma. But I want you to know that I'm here. Not just for the art, not just for business, but for you. Whatever happens, whatever comes next, I want to be there for you." Emma's breath caught in her throat as she looked at him. It felt like the walls she had built up around herself for years were slowly crumbling, piece by piece. And for the first time in her life, she wasn't afraid of that. "I think I'm ready for whatever comes next," she said, her voice steady, though her heart was racing. Liam squeezed her hand, his expression serious but filled with hope. "Then let's take that step together." As the night stretched on, they sat together in silence, the weight of unspoken words hanging between them. But for the first time in a long time, Emma didn't feel the need to fill that silence with worry or doubt. With Liam by her side, she knew she could face whatever challenges came her way. And as they sat there, watching the city lights flicker in the distance, she couldn't help but feel like the future was full of endless possibilities. She would explore with Liam, by her side. As the weeks went by, Emma's world continued to shift in ways she had never imagined. The art studio she had dreamed of was no longer just a far-off idea, it was becoming a reality. With Liam's support, she had begun to not only showcase her work but to gain recognition in the art community. The connections he had introduced her to had opened doors she had once thought were closed to her. As she poured her heart and soul into each new painting, she realized that her dreams were finally coming true. But there was something else that was growing between her and Liam, something that wasn't just about art or business. Every time they spent time together, Emma felt a connection she couldn't deny. It wasn't just the late-night conversations about work or the playful banter when they went out for coffee, it was something deeper. She had never expected to find this kind of bond with someone like Liam, someone so successful, so confident. He had opened doors for her in the professional world, but now, it seemed like he was starting to open doors to something even more personal, more meaningful. One evening, after an art gala where one of her paintings had sold for a record price, Liam took Emma out to celebrate. They walked through the bustling streets, the noise of the city surrounding them, but somehow, it felt like they were in their own little world. The lights of the city twinkled around them as Liam spoke, his voice soft and warm against the hum of the crowd. "You've come so far, Emma," he said, glancing over at her with pride in his eyes. "I knew you had it in you, but seeing it all come together like this, it's amazing." Emma smiled, the weight of the evening's success still sinking in. "I couldn't have done it without you, Liam. You've given me a chance I never would have had on my own." Liam stopped walking and turned to face her, his gaze serious. "Emma, you've done all the hard work. I just gave you the tools. But the truth is, you've changed something in me, too. I didn't expect that when we first started working together." She looked at him, her heart pounding in her chest. "What do you mean?" He took a deep breath, as if choosing his words carefully. "I spent so much of my life focused on business, on building an empire. I thought that was all I needed, all I wanted. But then you came into my life, and things started to change. I've started thinking about what really matters, about connection, about love, about building something that's not just for myself, but for others." Emma felt a wave of emotion wash over her. She had always admired Liam for his success, his ambition, but hearing him speak like this made her see a different side of him. He wasn't just the powerful CEO she had once thought him to be, he was someone who was capable of vulnerability, of change. "I didn't know I was capable of this," Liam continued, his voice softer now. "I didn't know I could care so much about someone outside of my work. But you've shown me that there's more to life than just making deals and closing contracts. There's something real here, Emma, and I think it's more than just business." Emma's breath caught in her throat. She had known that something had shifted between them, but hearing Liam say it aloud made everything seem so much more real. She had been afraid to admit her feelings, afraid to open herself up to the possibility of something more, but now, in this moment, all of her doubt seemed to fade away. "I feel it too," she whispered, looking up at him. "I didn't know how to say it, but I feel the same way. You've become so much more than just a mentor to me. You're someone I care about deeply, and I'm starting to think that maybe I've been holding myself back for too long." Liam reached out and took her hand, his fingers warm against her skin. "Then don't hold back anymore, Emma. Let's take this step together. Let's see where it leads." They stood there for a moment, the world around them fading into the background as they simply looked at each other. There was no need for words, no need for explanations. In that moment, Emma knew that everything was about to change, for both of them. The next few days were a whirlwind. Emma and Liam continued to work together on her art, but now there was something more between them, something unspoken, yet undeniable. They spent more time together, not just talking about business but sharing their lives, their hopes, and their fears. Emma began to realize that she had never allowed herself to truly let someone in, to trust them with her heart. But with Liam, it felt different. She felt safe, seen, and understood in a way she had never experienced before. But even as things between them deepened, Emma still struggled with the fear of being vulnerable. She had spent so much of her life building walls around herself, convinced that she could only rely on herself. But as she looked at Liam, she realized that maybe it was time to let those walls come down. Maybe it was time to let someone else in. And so, with each passing day, Emma and Liam's connection grew stronger. It wasn't just about their shared success or their work, it was about something deeper, something more profound. They were learning to navigate this new chapter of their lives together, step by step. And as Emma looked at Liam, she realized that this was just the beginning. The future was full of possibilities, and for the first time, she was ready to face them, not alone, but with him by her side. As Emma stood in front of her easel, brush in hand, the room around her seemed to hum with possibility. The art studio that had once seemed like a distant dream now felt like a part of her reality. The walls, which she had once envisioned as empty, were now filled with her work, each piece a piece of herself. It wasn't just about the paintings anymore, it was about the life she had built, the future she was creating, and the person she had become. But even with all of this success, one thing weighed heavily on her mind: Liam. She had spent so much time working, building her career, and learning to trust again, but now that she had allowed herself to open up to Liam, she felt a deeper connection than she had anticipated. It was both exhilarating and terrifying. She wasn't used to feeling this vulnerable. She had always been independent, always relied on herself, but with Liam, everything felt different. She had never imagined that she could feel this much for someone, especially someone who had so much power, so much influence. And yet, here she was, unsure of what to do with the emotion she was grappling with. Liam had been nothing short of supportive throughout the entire journey. He had been there every step of the way, helping her navigate the complexities of the art world, offering advice, and providing the encouragement she needed to push herself further. But it was more than that. He had been there for her in a way that no one else had. He had seen her, truly seen her, in a way that she had never allowed anyone to before. And now, as their relationship grew deeper, Emma couldn't help but wonder if she was ready for what that meant. One evening, after a long day in the studio, Emma found herself walking to the cafe where she and Liam often met after work. The familiar hum of the city surrounded her, the lights of the streetlights casting long shadows across the sidewalk. She had agreed to meet Liam for coffee, but as she walked, her heart felt heavy with the weight of everything she was feeling. She didn't know what to say to him, didn't know how to voice the concerns that had been swirling in her mind. When she entered the cafe, she immediately spotted Liam sitting at their usual table. He looked up as she approached, his eyes lighting up with warmth, and for a brief moment, Emma felt like everything would be okay. She had always felt at home in this space with him, but tonight, it felt different. She could sense that something had shifted between them. She couldn't deny the growing closeness she felt toward him, but at the same time, she was afraid of what would happen if she let herself feel too much. "Hey," Liam said, his voice soft and welcoming. "I'm glad you could make it." Emma smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. She sat down across from him, her hands resting on the table, her fingers fidgeting with the edge of her coffee cup. "Yeah, I'm glad too. I've been thinking about everything lately. About us." Liam tilted his head slightly, studying her with an expression of concern. "What's going on, Emma? You've seemed a little distant lately." She took a deep breath, the words she had been struggling to say finally coming to the surface. "I don't know, Liam. It's just... I've been so focused on my work, and then everything with us started to feel real. And I don't know if I'm ready for that. I don't know if I can handle it." Liam's face softened, and he reached across the table, gently taking her hand in his. "Emma, I don't want to rush you. I never have. But I think you're overthinking this. We're both taking things one step at a time. I care about you, and I want to be here for you, no matter what. But I'm not going anywhere. And I'm not expecting anything from you that you're not ready to give." Her heart fluttered at his words. It was so simple, so pure, but for Emma, it felt like a promise. She had been so afraid of being vulnerable, of allowing herself to trust someone again, but Liam's words made her realize that maybe, just maybe, it wasn't about rushing into anything, it was about letting things unfold naturally. "I've been scared," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Scared of letting myself feel too much. Scared that if I do, I'll lose control. But with you, I don't feel like I have to control everything. And that terrifies me." Liam squeezed her hand gently, his eyes filled with understanding. "You don't have to be perfect, Emma. You don't have to have everything figured out. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. You can take all the time you need. We'll go at your pace." The relief that washed over her was immediate, and for the first time in weeks, Emma felt like she could breathe. She had spent so much time carrying the weight of her own expectations, her own fears, but now, with Liam by her side, she realized that she didn't have to carry it all alone. She didn't have to be afraid of what might happen if she allowed herself to let go. "Thank you," she said, her voice steady now. "Thank you for being patient with me. For being here, no matter what." Liam smiled, his eyes soft. "There's no one else I'd rather be with, Emma. No matter what happens, I'm not going anywhere." As they sat there, the cafe bustling around them, Emma felt a sense of peace she had never known before. She didn't have all the answers, but for the first time, she didn't need them. With Liam, she was ready to face whatever came next, together. As time passed, Emma and Liam found a rhythm in their relationship, one that was built on mutual respect, trust, and a shared vision for the future. They continued to work together, balancing their professional lives with the growing connection they had forged. Emma's art was flourishing, with more exhibitions and offers coming her way, while Liam remained her pillar of support, encouraging her every step of the way. But as they stood together on the edge of something new, neither of them could deny that their connection had turned into something deeper, something undeniable. One evening, after a particularly successful gallery opening where Emma's work had sold out, they found themselves standing side by side, watching the city skyline from the balcony of Liam's penthouse. The night was cool, and the city lights sparkled below them like a sea of stars. Emma leaned against the railing, her eyes focused on the view. "I never thought I'd be here," she said quietly, her voice carrying a hint of disbelief. "I never imagined that everything I wanted could actually come true." Liam stood beside her, his gaze fixed on her. "I knew you had it in you, Emma," he said softly. "But I think what's even more amazing is how much you've changed me. You've made me see that life isn't just about success, it's about connection, about finding someone who understands you. And I found that in you." Emma's heart skipped a beat, and she turned to face him, her eyes searching his for the sincerity she knew was there. "I feel the same way," she whispered. "I didn't realize how much I needed this, how much I needed you." Liam reached out, taking her hand in his fingers warm against her skin. "Then let's make it count," he said, his voice steady and full of determination. "Let's take this step together, whatever comes next." Emma smiled, feeling the weight of everything that had happened between them, the struggles, the doubts, the fears, and now the undeniable love that had blossomed in the most unexpected way. She realized, in that moment, that she had found something far greater than just her dreams of becoming an artist. She had found a partner, someone who saw her for who she truly was, someone who believed in her even when she didn't believe in herself. "I'm ready," she said, her voice full of certainty. "Let's do this, together." And as they stood there, hand in hand, with the city sprawling out before them, Emma knew that this was only the beginning. They had come so far, and there was still so much more ahead of them. Together, they were ready to face whatever challenges and opportunities life would bring. The future was bright, and for the first time in her life, Emma felt truly free. Free to be herself, free to love, and free to dream. With Liam by her side, there was nothing they couldn't conquer.